Well, hello YouTube, it's me, Fortnaster, and welcome back to another film theory reaction. And this is Which Witch in Wicked is Wicked? Honestly, whoever came up with that title, so many smacks. Which, oh god, I mean, granted, I've never seen Wicked, either, the play or anything. The only experience with this I've ever had is, the original Wizard of Oz movie. I've seen bits of the, Return to Oz, and bits of The Wiz, but that's really it. And, I don't want to come off in like any negative way here, but can I just say I'm kind of tired of us trying to give every single villain that's ever existed in media a sympathetic backstory. Oh wait, no, there also was that, oh god, what was that movie that came out years ago? It was like a prequel to The Wizard of Oz where it followed the actual Wizard of Oz when he came to Oz. What was that called? Oz. That was it. It was Oz the Great and Powerful. I remember watching that, and I think in that movie they kind of gave, what was it? The Wicked Witch of the West a backstory? Granted, it's been a while since I've watched, so I can't quite remember. But after all these years, and, maybe it's also because, Disney hasn't really given us a good villain in a while. At least not on the same terms as, like, Scar or Jafar or, stuff from the Renaissance. But, again, it's the whole thing where I just want somebody where I can just, hate. Like, they do bad things because they do bad things, and I don't have to feel bad about hating them because they're doing bad things that may or may not affect me. Or, the main characters, I should say. But I mean, though granted, I'm saying all this, like, not having seen anything involving Wicked itself. So again, I have no experience on, like, how good the movie and the play was. I mean, I've heard good things, but again, never seen any of it myself. So, let's just continue on with the video then. So, yeah, I guess, with all that being said, we should probably get into this then. So, of course, as always, original videos linked in the description if you haven't seen it for some reason. Corner video will lead to my game theory reaction. And yeah, with all that out of the way, let's get this thing started then, shall we?
Who's really the Wicked Witch in Wicked? And, on the other hand, who's actually good? If we take a look at all of the evidence, can we empirically prove whether or not Glinda is good and Elphaba wicked? Or maybe, is it just the other way around? And of course, most importantly, what does it mean for the story and themes of Wicked? Strap in, friends, for some unadulterated theorizing. Hello Internet, welcome to Film Theory, the show that knows that this feeling so sudden and new is clicking subscribe to get theories to you. So, like most of the entire population of the United States, I went and saw Wicked over the Thanksgiving weekend, and let me tell you, as someone who isn't typically into Broadway, I was blown away. If you don't know, Wicked is an adaptation of the musical play of the same name, itself an adaptation of the novel Wicked by Gregory Maguire. This story reimagines the classic Wizard of Oz universe and gives a different take on its characters, presenting its version of the Wicked Witch of the West as Elphaba Throp, a misunderstood but powerful sorcerer forced to be roommates with the popular and self-absorbed Galinda Upland, later known as Galinda the Good Witch, as they go to school at Shiz University. Along with Hamilton and the Book of Mormon, Wicked is one of the most popular musicals from this century, and honestly, this was an amazing adaptation. The filmmakers crushed it on this one, and that's without even mentioning the catchy songs from the show itself, like Popular has been stuck in my head for over a week now. It's so good that most people aren't even annoyed that it was split up into two parts. Like, seriously, what is up with Hollywood doing that with these adaptations sometimes? Regardless.
Oh god, seriously, they did. Well, honestly, the reason why they did it. It's because, like, why have one really big movie that you only pay once to see when you can split it up into two smaller movies and force people to pay twice to see? Honestly, it sounds like these, like, I hear story, I talked to my mom when she was a little kid. Longer movies had actual intermissions, and I'd love to have movies start having intermissions now again, just because, so you can go to the bathroom, refresh, and buy refresh your drinks and snacks and stuff like that. Because you don't know how many times I've been through a movie and like halfway through I'm done my pop and I have to pee, but I don't want to leave, otherwise I'll miss a part of the movie.
Bliss, of course, you know me, loyal theorists. As I was sitting in my theater, my theorist cogs couldn't help but start a-turning, and there were plenty of ideas for theories coming out of this movie. Did Fiyero not fall asleep from the poppies because he's built up a tolerance to opium? How did Elphaba's cloak keep getting longer and longer at the end, and how much would that thing weigh? You know, the normal things people think about during movies. But what really got me thinking was how this version of the World of Oz categorized its characters. See, Glinda is outright called good by everyone around her. It's a core part of her identity, while Elphaba is scorned as a wicked witch just because she goes against the grain. Like, starting out, the rest of the school straight up hates her because of this. Obviously, the truth is a lot more nuanced. That's the whole point of this story. But, well, is Glinda actually good? Is Elphaba wicked, or is she not that girl? If we looked at this as scientifically and psychologically as we could, at all of the actions and motivations for Elphaba and Glinda, and then we tried to place them on an alignment chart, empirically, where would they actually end up? Is Elphaba good and Glinda wicked? Well, the answer isn't so black and white, friends, or I guess pink and green, and you are going to be surprised with where they end up. But
okay, so here's what I'm kind of thinking. The whole thing I was talking about earlier about, you know, giving, you know, villains sympathetic backstories and stuff like that. I will take it back just a little bit for this, because thinking about it, I do, like, it is very obvious that, you know, Wicked, you know, as I said, it's a version of The Wizard of Oz. They're not saying, oh, this is the official prequel or anything like that. Because from the little bit I've actually read of The Wizard of Oz and, you know, the stories that come after it, because, you know, if you didn't know, The Wizard of Oz is an actual book series. I think, I'm forgetting how many stories there are in it at this point. Well, you have to say, The Wizard of Oz is a very weird place, and the logic doesn't always make sense. So, I mean, you can have, you know, The Wizard of Oz being this weird and wacky world, and then you can have the world of Wicked, which is kind of like based off it, but it's kind of toned back, it's kind of reeled back in, as it were, for more, you know, for whatever is, you know, normal sensibilities, whatever you want to classify those as. But yeah, now I'm very interested. Again, and maybe it was just the whole thing where they showed, like, her cloak being absolutely stupidly gigantic at the end of the movie. Honestly, that's just going to be fun to see. Let's get back into this.
Put on your pointy hats and prepare to dance through life, loyal theorists. We're about to defy gravity. So just to be entirely clear, we are only going to be talking about the Wicked film here, not the play or the book. So that also means that we're only going to be covering what these characters do in the first half of this story. We won't be considering what's going to happen in the second movie, even if we have a pretty good idea of what that's going to be thanks to the source material. Cool? Cool. Probably the best place to start here is to get everyone up to speed on what it actually means to be good in this context. So let's really explain an alignment chart. You've probably seen a few of these around the internet before. Basically, they categorize
D&D,
characters into one of 9 sections on 2 axes. The first is whether or not they are good or evil, and the second is whether they are lawful or chaotic. And in between those 4 points, you also have neutrality. I think this is a pretty good alignment chart with popular characters that gives you an idea of the different sections. Superman is a big boy scout who likes to follow the rules and help people, lawful good. The Joker is a maniac that does what he wants and doesn't care if he kills people, chaotic evil. Then you have characters like Harry Potter who help people regardless of the rules, Robin Hood who helps people in direct conflict with the rules, Captain Jack who's only in it for himself, Darth Vader who follows his evil empire's laws but does bad things. You get the idea. And just to be clear, this isn't just like a vibe check or anything like that. These categories have actual meanings. See, the system has its origins back with the tabletop RPG Dungeons and Dragons. Yes, this little dice goblin did finally find a way to sneak his love of D&D and math rocks into another theory, thank you very much. In D&D, concepts like good, evil, law, and chaos are sort of cosmological forces. Some otherworldly entities and deities are literally embodiments of good, evil, law, and chaos. It's complicated and less important for us here today. No, the important thing is that characters were sorted into these alignments based on their actions and motivations, by what they do, and almost as importantly, why they do it, and that was what defined a lot of what powers and spells they could take in early versions of the game. It's less important or entirely irrelevant these days, but the idea has survived partially thanks to the popularity of this online meme. So if we want to see where Elphaba and Glinda would actually fall on this chart, we'll need two pieces of information. One, what does it mean to be good and evil? And two, what do they do that's good or evil? Well, let's start with that first question and what it means to be good in D&D. According to the 2014 Player's Handbook, you can count on good people to do the right thing. This can be doing good as society sees fit, or following their own conscience and doing what they believe is the right thing. Usually, good also means being altruistic, having a respect for life and concern for others' dignity. Good characters will make sacrifices to do the right thing. And honestly, that's also a pretty solid breakdown of what modern society also views as good. Like,
yeah,
yes,
exactly.
obviously it will vary from person to person and culture to culture, but there are some overall good qualities that most of humanity agrees on. According to Dr. Steve Taylor, senior lecturer in psychology at Leeds University, to be good is to lack self-centeredness and to have the ability to empathize with others. You are able to feel compassion and put others' needs before your own, see beyond superficial differences like race, gender, and nationality, and self-sacrifice for the greater good. Similarly, Bethany
not that greater good.
Dubey, a doctor of psychology affiliated with the American Psychological Association, outlined several traits commonly associated with good. These included empathy, or understanding someone else's emotions and perspective; compassion, wanting to ease the suffering of others; kindness, treating others with respect and goodwill; altruism, or selflessness; integrity, being honest, reliable, responsible, and humble; and inclusivity, making room for any perspective, identity, or background. On the other hand, they agreed that being bad, evil, or wicked was instead an inability to empathize, to be led by your own selfish needs and desires. The wicked are self-absorbed, narcissistic, and willing to exploit others to get what they want. This also lines up with the evil alignments in the D&D source material for the alignment chart meme. There, evil creatures have no compassion. They don't care if they hurt or kill others if it's convenient for them and makes it possible to achieve their goals. And something else that's good? The wickedly great deal you can get for the sponsor.
Actually, so thinking about it, there was like on the whole like alignment chart thing. There was a YouTuber I've watched before, and his channel, if I remember what it is, I'll put it like in the bottom of the video. But he went over like a video, like kind of going over the whole thing with problem players, where if they went a chaotic. If they went like a chaotic, a sort of alignment, they would just take that as, oh, chaotic means random, so I'm just going to start doing random things because it's my alignment. And he took that, and he and the way he kind of like extrapolated that to a more understandable and more, I guess for lack of a word, stable way of thinking of it would be lawful would be if like lawful and chaotic could be more focused on like a societal viewpoint. So you obviously you have good and evil from before, but lawful would be like if you lived in a society, like let's say for the example that I think he gave was like a royal family with like a strict like set of succession, like a strict law about how things are going to go down if things were to happen. While chaotic would be more focused on like chaotic would be more focused on like say like your more stereotypical tribal society, like with orcs, where you have the chieftain, but who's next in line isn't so much the chieftain's son. It's very much like the rule of strength, like anybody could challenge the chieftain to for leadership of the tribe, fight them, and then potentially kill them, and now all of a sudden they're the boss, and instead of the previous chieftain's boss or some sort of voting practice, stuff like that. I wonder, if I can remember, if I can find the original video I'm talking about, I'll link it because I'll. Again, if I can find the video I'm talking about, I'll put a clip of him actually explaining it. But God, I wonder if that's. I know, because again, I know that's not actual D&D alignment chart, but I wonder if that's going to play anything into the actual video here.
So, with all of that in mind, where do Elphaba and Glinda actually land on this alignment chart? Let's start with Elphaba. The first thing she's really got going for her, she's a huge advocate for her sister Nessa Rose. Elphaba insists that people treat Nessa like an equal, despite Nessa being in a wheelchair and people often seeing that as something to pity. She also supports Nessa's relationship with Bach after learning that Glinda set them up, despite Elphaba's personal distaste for Glinda at that point in the story. And in fact, she goes out of her way to help Glinda after she gets Bach to ask Nessa out. Elphaba knows that Glinda's big dream is to become a sorcerer and puts her own future in jeopardy, threatening to quit Shiz to help Glinda get into sorcerer studies. And heck, she even invited Glinda to come to the Emerald City with her to meet the wizard, opening that door for Glinda as well. Networking is important, kids. Already, Elphaba here is showcasing many of the qualities we defined as good. She's empathetic, compassionate, kind, and selfless. However, the biggest points in the good category for Elphaba has to be her treatment of the talking animals in Oz. Wicked makes a big point to use the talking animals as a stand-in for oppressed minorities here in the real world. They're often seen as second-class citizens when compared to humans, and face oppression and imprisonment just for how they were born. Obviously, because people treat her differently because of her green skin, Elphaba truly empathizes with this and goes out of her way to defend and be more inclusive towards the animals. Also, doesn't hurt that she was basically raised by one, but I digress. Some big examples of this? Well, when Glinda is making fun of Tyrion Lannister, Dr. Dillamond for his speech impediment, Elphaba defends him. She tries to lift his spirits after the racist message is written on his blackboard, helps him clean up the broken glass in his classroom, and brings him flowers to cheer him up. But Elphaba does know Dillamond personally. Does this compassion and inclusivity expand to other animals beyond him? Abso-frickin-lutely. Elphaba risks her own safety and future to help save the cowardly lion cub from his cage, and she gives up her own future prospects and power as the right-hand woman to the wizard when she realizes that he's responsible for all of the oppression that the animals face. In fact, she straight up becomes an enemy of the state because of that decision. Now, admittedly, that's a lot to land Elphaba in the good category, but does she do anything that could outweigh this on our alignment chart? Well, honestly, not really. Most of the bad things Elphaba does in this movie were accidents, outbursts of her power that she couldn't really control, and even then, no one was ever really hurt, and she felt bad immediately afterward. Even the worst thing she did in the film, forcing the wizard's monkey guards to go through the painful transformation of growing wings, came from a good place. Elphaba thought that she was trying to help the monkeys achieve their dreams of being able to fly, immediately understood that they were in pain, and tried to stop or reverse the spell as soon as she could. That just doesn't sound evil or wicked according to this alignment chart. Elphaba isn't cruel. She doesn't enjoy hurting people and certainly doesn't go out of her way to do bad things. Nah, man. And given her disdain for the current laws of Oz, how they treat the oppressed class that are the animals, she absolutely isn't lawful either. No, Elphaba isn't the Wicked Witch of the West. If anything, she's the chaotic good witch of the West according to our wicked alignment chart. So, okay, Elphaba isn't actually wicked, but what about her co-lead, Glinda? Well, she's way more complicated. See, throughout the film, Glinda is constantly regarded as good by others. The only people who don't seem to care for her are Morrible and the wizard himself. Even Elphaba, who hates her at first, grows to like Glinda because of the quote-unquote good things that she does. And when you list them out, Glinda does seem to do a lot of good in this film. Glinda offers to cure Elphaba's green skin once she becomes a sorcerer, since she sees it as an affliction. And she also offers to share her private suite with Elphaba when she's admitted to Shiz at the last second. She encourages Bach to take Nessa to the dance at the Ozdust Ballroom, kindling a relationship there, and she also gives Elphaba her grandmother's hat to wear to that dance. When Elphaba is embarrassed and dancing alone, Glinda steps up and dances with her, leading to the entire ballroom joining in and seeing Elphaba in a new light. And then Glinda gives Elphaba a makeover to make her popular. God, that's so catchy. Glinda changes her name from Galinda in support of Dr. Dillamond, who couldn't properly pronounce her name due to a speech impediment, and she's there for a nervous Elphaba as she fulfills her dream of going to the Emerald City. And probably her goodest action in my estimation, when Elphaba reveals her darkest secret, that she was responsible for her sister Nessa being in a wheelchair and her mother's death because of a dangerous medicine that Elphaba's mother took so Nessa wouldn't be green like Elphaba. Glinda correctly points out that this wasn't her fault.
Yeah, if anything, it was her mother's fault, because, you know, experimental medicines.
It was the fault of the medicine and her father's bigotry, not of Elphaba.
never mind, move the blame over to the father.
Out of all of these, there are several genuinely good actions. Correcting Elphaba on that secret for one, but also supporting her as she goes to the Emerald City, giving Elphaba a makeover, even if it's a bit shallow and superficial, and dancing with Elphaba, even if it's because Glinda feels guilty about playing a prank on Elphaba after being told that Elphaba got her into a class to pursue sorcery. But did you hear just how many caveats those had? Yeah, a lot of the good Glinda does is clearly conditional. It wasn't just because she wanted to do it out of the goodness of her heart. Remember, in our definition of good and evil here, your motivation matters just as much,
very
if
much
not
does.
more, than the actions themselves. And what's more, the rest of these good actions are entirely performative. They are good actions, yes, but Glinda only does them by accident, for her own benefit, or to make her look good to others. Like, she only says that she'll help Elphaba with her skin when they're in front of the entire school body of shiz, and also considers her skin color as something wrong with her. That's not and is never the case. Glinda sharing her private suite with Elphaba was a misunderstanding, one that Glinda regrets, and she only encouraged Bach to take Nessa to the dance so Glinda could focus her attention on Fiyero. The gift of the hat to Elphaba was meant as a cruel prank because Glinda thought that the hat looked ugly and ridiculous, and Glinda only changes her name to support Dr. Dilliman when she sees that Fiyero and Elphaba care about Dilliman, and not because she cares about Dilliman and the other animals herself. And all of this isn't even mentioning the definitely not good things that Glinda does throughout the show, like making fun of Dilliman's accent when he's first introduced. And at the end of the film, though she's heavily conflicted, Glinda can't bring herself to make a stand for the oppressed animals in the same way that Elphaba and Fiyero do. It's just not who she is, and why I just can't say that Glinda is a good witch. She just, frankly, doesn't meet the requirements to be good on an alignment chart.
Yeah, I'd very much, just from everything I've heard here, I wouldn't call her outright evil. I mean, a little selfish here and there. But I'd much more put her, like, neutral? Though, not chaotic. Though, at the same time, not lawful neutral either. I'd say almost, actually think about it, maybe true neutral would be the best for her.
So if Glinda isn't good, then what is she? Well, your first thought might be that she's actually bad, or evil, or wicked, one could say. After all, those psychologists we referenced at the top of the episode said that the wicked are self-absorbed and narcissistic. Doesn't that sound like Glinda? Maybe, but I don't think so. Honestly, that's part of the theme of the show, right? There are multiple sides to every story. What might look bad could actually be good, and vice versa. People are not binary when it comes to good and evil. There are shades of both
sometimes it
in
does
everybody.
feel like it.
And like, for real, you truly have to make an effort to be evil, which we see in this film. Both Morrible and the Wizard of Oz are shown to be cruel and racist. They threaten people who oppose them or to keep the talking animals in line. And they're just giddy at the pain and exploitation of characters like the flying monkeys, just so they can have spies for their cause. That is unambiguously evil and very much not what Glinda is about. In fact, when it comes to Glinda, bringing it back to our alignment chart, I'd actually say that she's somewhere in the neutral spectrum. Now, when you hear neutral, you might think that this means that a character is a fence-sitter, that they have no strong convictions, like those guys from Futurama.
I have no strong feelings one way or the other.
But for an alignment chart, that isn't necessarily true. Like, sure, if you're neutral, you might not really have the commitment to go out of your way to help others just because it's the right thing to do. But that also doesn't mean that you're fine with just hurting or killing others for no reason. You're not a monster. No, the thing that defines a neutral character is their personal relationships. Yeah, if you're neutral, you're still committed to others through your one-on-one friendships and loves. And that's exactly what we see with Glinda. Think about it. She becomes very invested in Fiyero after their romantic relationship begins, and she also becomes very fond and protective of Elphaba after they grow close. After she realizes the good that Elphaba has done for her. I mean, like, the song Popular even straight up says this in its lyrics. Quote, "Now that I've chosen to become a pal, a sister, an advisor, there's nothing that can stop you from becoming popular." I would have played the music there, but copyright strikes terrifying.
Yeah,
Glinda
YouTube,
goes out of her way
definitely.
to become friends, and all of a sudden she's supportive of Elphaba, offering her reassuring words, affirmations, and helping her become more
Popular.
God, that song is catchy. But this doesn't necessarily transfer to other characters, like the animals. Now, it's not like Glinda is going out of her way to hurt or oppress said animals, she's just not going out of her way to help them either.
Yeah, she just really doesn't seem to care on the issue. I mean, I guess in that instance, she's very much a fence sitter. She doesn't really lean either way or one way or the other. But, like, again, with her, it's not so much malicious. It's just sort of... It really doesn't matter to her in the slightest.
Either. She sees that the plight of the animals upsets Elphaba and Fiyero, the people she cares about, but I mean, the wizard must have a good reason, right? The rules have to be in place for a reason, right? That right there is Glinda's worldview. And even after it's revealed that the wizard is hurting the animals for his own purposes, Glinda can't bring herself to rebel against him with Elphaba. So, honestly, if we're putting Glinda on this alignment chart, she's neither good nor evil. And given the fact that she also follows the rules even though they're seemingly unjust? Nah, Glinda is a fantastic character, incredibly nuanced and well written, following the themes of the rest of the show. But she isn't the good witch, that's Elphaba. Glinda's more like the lawful neutral witch. Yeah, that's not as catchy. I can see why it didn't stick. But hey, that's just a theory. A film theory. And...
Very interesting, very interesting. Again, I don't think I'm going to go out of my way to actually see the movie because, again, the musical never interested me, and, you know, as a result, the movie doesn't interest me. At the same time, I'm going to be really interested to see, like, well, I'm going to be interested to see if they do a sequel to this video when Part 2 comes out. Because, again, having no idea where Part 2 really goes... Like, I don't know. Again, I've never seen the musical, so I don't know. Does the musical kind of continue on through the events of The Wizard of Oz to her death? Because if it does, I mean, I'm definitely going to be interested to see, like, how those things affect, like, the scoring as it were on the chart. But, I mean, yeah, I don't have anything really else to say on the topic besides just it being really interesting. So, yeah, of course, as always, original videos linked in the description if you haven't seen it for some reason. Corner video will lead to my game theory reaction. And, yeah, with love out of the way, I hope you guys liked. If you did, leave a like, subscribe if you have not, and I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.